Hi, welcome to Hedgehog Hollow. I'm back with Maymay Made It for some more mail art. This month I'm going to be creating an envelope to coordinate with that beautiful nativity card we made last time. So let's get started. So the card that we made the other day with the nativity scene on, I actually have already given away to someone. So I'm going to just do the mail art envelope that will coordinate, and I'll pop some pictures of that card in the blog post if you haven't already seen it and link up the video. It'll be in your top right hand corner now. You can just click on it to hop on over if you want to, and we'll make sure it's linked up at the end for you as well. But I just have for this one just a regular card envelope. So this is the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 size. I have a piece of the Inkadinkado masking paper that I have cut down. No particular measurements, I just cut it down to roughly a dress size. And I'm going to mask that area out because that's where I'm going to end up writing my address later on, whenever I do send this out. And I'm going to be practicing my hand lettering now that I've got my art snacks box, my lettering snacks. Again, I'll link that up for you so you can see that I did an unboxing. Now when I press down masking paper, I have a wallpaper roller, you may have seen it in previous videos. And I just go over the edges because I want to make sure they're really well stuck. But this paper is pretty good. You can die cut it, you can do all sorts of great things with it, but that just seems to work really well. So I have the same colours that I used on the card. So I have the picked raspberry, the seedless preserves, the black soot, and the faded jeans. And I'm going to do a similar technique. So I'm going to start with the picked raspberry. And I have my Ranger tool with my little foamy on here as well. And I'm working on a Ranger craft mat too. So I'm going to pick up some ink. I'm going to just dab off on the side. I particularly like to dab off the edges because I don't like them to be too solid. I can start on that masking paper and then I can just start blending out a little bit. So I'm going to start with adding some of that pink in. And we're going to add lots of colours in. Now the only thing I will say is that this particular envelope that I'm using, this is just a regular card envelope that I buy. These are not all that glossy. There are some more glossy ones out there. I believe the Gina K ones are a little bit more glossy. And I'm just going to start adding that pink colour. Then I'm going to move to the Seedless preserves. Like so. Again, I'm just going to dab off on the edge. And then I'm going to kind of leave about 1/4 of an inch and start blending. You can also pick up some of that ink that's still there. The other thing that I'm trying to do is not get any ink on the reverse of the envelope. So every time I turn, I'm moving it away from that harsh edge. And then you can either turn it over when you start a new colour or just give it a wipe off and start again. I have lots of these because I cut them down to the same size as my stamp platform and my Misti and all those kinds of things. So again, I'm going to really get some of that ink off on here and then go onto the envelope. And I'm blending out some of those marks and things. We can also add some water, but when you go back in with ink, it does reactivate and get rid of some of those lines too. By putting your fingers on the piece in the middle, you're not going to get any fingerprints either. Then I'm going to go with the black soot. I may not use the faded jeans, we'll see how it goes. And I'm going to be really light. So I'm going to pick up some of that black soot, I'm going to get rid of lots of it onto my sheet, and I'm really only going to touch those edges and blend in some of those corners. So again, really light. I don't want much of that black soot. One thing I would say is whatever envelope you use, try to make it a thick, good quality paper that you're using, or make your own out of a sheet of Bristol Smooth or watercolour paper, depending on what you're using. I'm just going to turn my sheet over so that it's clean, and I'm going to go back to the picked raspberry. So I'm going to start again in the middle. So I'm going to start here, get rid of some of that really intense colour, and then go back around those edges. Like so. And then back to the Seedless preserves. Again, you can also start blending on that masking paper so you can see when your tool is at a good point to go again. And I'm just blending out some of the black there, blending out any marks that I might have. We are going to add other things which will kind of take some of that down as well. Now, a few of you also asked me about postage. With this kind of technique, I don't have any issue because I've left this mask bit in the middle, so it's still machine readable. Some cards you may need to add that extra ounce stamp on for. If I do anything that's all over and then put the address onto it, then I add that extra stamp for the non-machine readable as well. So I'm going to leave that there, and then I'm going to take my distress sprayer. So again, I'm going to just kind of find my bearings as to where it is, and I'm going to be quite light because it is an envelope, it's not designed to take a huge amount. And then I'm going to dry this with my Ranger heat tool. So once all of that is dry, we can go in and add our stars exactly as we did on the card that matches. So I have my PH Martin pen white, which I find is really great for this stage, and I have my old paintbrush here that I stick in. So this is the kind of messy process that sometimes can spread. So I'm just giving it a tap, and depending where you tap it on the brush kind of depends on how heavy they are. Also, of course, depends how much ink you have on there, but you can, I tend to go light and then add more if I need to. But between this and the water, I find that gives you a really lovely effect on your cards. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is make sure that this is completely dry before you go on to the next stage. So I completely dried this using that same Ranger Heat It tool, and now I'm going to put it into my Misti so we can do our stamping. I'm going to put it a little bit further up for now. We'll see how that goes. I'm using the Merry Christmas from the same stamp set we used on the cards, which is from Celebrate the Season, and it has some great verses and things. There's stars and that in there as well. Lots of different things in there. I've got my Misti corner here, and I'm just going to make sure my sentiment is somewhat straight. And whoops, let's try that again. Put this in there. I always put the Y or any tails over the top. I'm just grabbing my Teflon bone folder because that's really great at holding a stamp in place so it doesn't stick. And now I'm going to stamp this out using the Ranger Superfine White Embossing Powder. Just going to move that down a little bit. And if you have the longer envelope to match the card that we made previously, and when I did mine I just made one using my envelope punch, then you could maybe put a verse on it. You might be able to fit the nativity on it. That would be really lovely. Or you could even do that same dome at the bottom that we used previously. I'm going to be quite heavy with my powder tool just in case there's any wet ink or anything left that I may have forgotten. And I'm going to double stamp with the VersaMark just to make sure we get everything in there. To grab this, good little flick. And this is a tiny tray. If you haven't seen me use these before, I'll link them up. They're great for glitter and sequins and embossing powder and all sorts of things. Take our stamp off for cleaning. And I'm going to heat this using my embossing heat tool. And I use the Wagner heat tool. And then the best bit is when we get to peel this off. So then we have that fantastic area there that we get to write our address into. And I just got these new Tombow calligraphy pens. One is lighter, one is darker. Let's use this bit of masking paper on there. So we have one that's a little bit more firm. I would think that this is the firm. And then we have this is definitely the firm. So that was the thicker, this is the thinner. So this is much more firm than that one. And the idea is, particularly with this one, it's really easy to get those thick down and the thin ups. So you put more pressure on your down than you do on your up. So now that we can write on our address. So I have both pens here and I have my address pre-written out, and if you would like to be part of our mail arch, you can hop on over to our Facebook page, Hedgehog Hollow Ink, INK on Facebook, and we have a post there that you can add your name and address into. So I'm going to start out with my two. And this is the softer one, as we found out. And then I'm going to use the thinner one for the rest of my address. So, 8. Just working my way through. This is just my regular handwriting. This is not special lettering or anything like that. These are really lovely to write with. So I will be popping a card in here, not necessarily a Christmas card to Shelley, but I will be popping a card in the mail to her. So do check out all of our linked posts that we've popped on there for you. And we've got the pictures there of the envelope. And of course a picture of the back, which has our lovely address labels. I'll pop those in the blog post as well, where I got those from. So thank you so much for joining me here today with Maymay Made It. Do check out our other posts, and I'll see you again later in the month. Click that subscribe button if you don't already, and we would love a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Happy stamping! Bye!